Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Super Lunch Bros Podcast, episode number 165. I am Brendan. PFL 2022 playoffs. This is the light featherweights and women's lightweights. So we're going to go over those. This is the final playoff. Sorry, I had to turn that fan down because it's blowing like crazy. So this is the last playoff event because everything after this is all the championship fights. So the playoffs are set. We're going to talk about Kayla Harrison versus Marina Jindrova, Brendan Loughnane, Chris Wade, Larissa Pacheco, Elena Kolesnyk, and Ryoji Kudo versus Bubba Jenkins. So we're going to cover all of those, but we are not going to cover the rest of the card. All right, there are a lot of fights on this card. We're not going to go over those. Plenty of fine fights to be had, plenty of fine fights to watch. None of that stuff affects the playoffs, though, and we will talk about those when they get into the regular season for the European Contender Series. So we'll talk about those. Before we get started, if you like MMA, if you like podcasts about MMA, if you like the UFC, PFL, Bellator, 1FC, subscribe to the channel because I make videos like this every single week, 2 or 3 videos covering all of the fights that happened in the UFC and then most of the fights in the PFL and Bellator. So let's get started. Kayla Harrison is in the finals again, surprising absolutely nobody. Good performance for her. She didn't really take any damage, so that's good. I don't know if her knees are bugging her because she had both of them wrapped. So what does that mean? I don't know. It did not seem to affect her ability to dominate Martina in this fight. So when they were on the feet, Martina landed maybe one shot of significance, and it says 6 strikes. I don't know if that's one real significant shot. I think she landed on Kayla's entry. And then, Martina was moving around all super spastic. She couldn't focus. It didn't look like she was focused on her offense. She just didn't want to get into grappling exchanges. So Jindrova throws a body kick. It gets caught. Kayla Harrison dumps her, throws her on the ground, manages to work her way to mount with about 2 minutes and 50 seconds left, and then she got a mounted triangle and got the tap at 1:45. So in the first round, she gets the finish, fight's over. Kayla Harrison is going to the finals, and we will talk about her opponent, and we will talk about that fight going forward as far as the championship and the $1 million. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go to the next fight. We can talk about her fight for a second here. How good is Kayla Harrison? It's really hard to tell. Based off what I'm seeing and the people that she's called out, Chris Cyborg, Amanda Nunes. Obviously she's going to fight Pacheco. She's fought her before. She's also 155 pounds, so she's much bigger. Actually, I don't know how much bigger she really is compared to Chris Cyborg. Chris Cyborg fights at featherweight, but she's gigantic. Here's what I'll say. It's something I can definitively say and not hem and haw about. Her grappling is elite. Coming from her judo background, being a gold medalist, and having all of the competition experience that she does, allows her to be very fluid, comfortable, and natural when it comes to the grappling exchanges. Striking needs work. Now, because women's MMA is not in, it's in its teenage years, I would say, or adolescence, right? It's not in its infancy. Okay, we had that. It's evolving. It's growing. It's getting a little bit better. The skill level is constantly rising. The talent pool is getting deeper. There's more to it. But, like I mentioned, she fights at 155. There is not a lot of skilled fighters at 155 for females. There's just not. It's just not a very common size. You're going to find some bloated featherweights, some extremely bloated bantamweights, and some, I'm just going to say it, lazy strawweights, right? Holding on to 40 extra pounds. So if I had to pit her against the other, you can't even say her contemporaries because they don't fight in her weight class, but the other elites of female MMA today, how do I think she would do? Against Amanda Nunes, I think she'd do fine. I think she could overpower her, and Amanda Nunes does have some quit in her. If Nunes can get... She's been beaten before, she'll get beaten again, and I think Kayla Harrison has what it takes to beat her. I don't know if Nunes could crack Harrison early enough to rock her. We haven't seen anything like that, so maybe, but I don't think so. Against Chris Cyborg, who's a little bit bigger, hits a little bit harder, has been fighting, has, a more well-rounded background. As long as she, it's harder for me to know because I don't know if anybody has really dominated or been able to break Cyborg through grappling. And that's the only way Harrison would do it. So, without getting too much more into her future, because, she still has to, not even defend the title, but fight for the $1 million championship. So she still has to do that. And then if she does do that, after she does do that, then we will talk about her future and possible opponents coming from different organizations. Let's talk about the fight of the night. All right, especially when it comes to these playoffs. Definitely, it's probably one of the best playoff fights that we've seen so far. Brendan Loughnane defeating Chris Wade via decision 30-27 on all judges' scorecards. So I actually, we'll break it down here round by round. Loughnane looked excellent. This is the best he has looked all year. He even acknowledged it. He said, that guy that you saw there in those other two fights, that guy was shit. He's like, this was the real Brendan Loughnane. This was him. This is me. I'm like, this looked a lot better. He looks like he was ready to kick some ass today. It was pretty impressive, to be honest, because Chris Wade looked like a destroyer coming into this fight. Brendan was biting on some feints early. It was not a really good sign. Wade was able to push him against a fence and grapple a little bit, but the damage went 50-50. And then Brendan just moved when he ducked when he should have dipped, and he caught a high kick to the back of the head from Wade. So he didn't go down, and he immediately went into grapple, but he never took a knee, didn't get rocked, or we couldn't see him get rocked. And then he pulls guard as Wade is trying to grapple with him. So he pulls guard, and Wade ends up on top. Now, that's going to play into how I scored this first round. Brendan got back to the feet. There was no real damage from ground and pound from Wade. Brendan landed a really great right hand and then a beautiful left hand. He was defending a takedown from Chris Wade and gave him a really nice oil check, so that was going on. You heard a giggle from the announcers. They didn't mention it, though. And then Brendan went for low calf kicks late in the round and then got a takedown. He didn't get any damage with his takedown, but, getting the takedown does count for that thing, for something. So in this first round, obviously the FPR has it 49-34 in favor of Brendan. I gave it to him because this first round was very close, and only because of the head kick. If you go off of damage and total damage, I give it to Brendan. And because we didn't see Brendan get dropped or rocked or the fight looking like it was almost over from Wade, that head kick wasn't that much more significant than the big left hand from Brendan. So that's why I ended up giving it to Loughnane. If you went to Chris Wade as Randy Couture did, that's fine. I could see that, but honestly, I gave that first round to Brendan. And he was able to land low kicks, landing his jab beautifully in that second round. He was just picking his shots, and all that stuff was starting to add up. And he threw a great hook upstairs and a couple to the body. Wade was doing some good damage to the right leg of Brendan, like his lead leg when he would switch stances. So he was compromising the movement a little bit, but it wasn't enough to sway that round. In fact, if you look at the FPR, 89-35 in favor of Brendan, that's definitely correct. And I had him up 20-18. And then Brendan in this last round, he just did the damn thing. Landed some good counters. He actually rocked Wade at one point. He landed a spinning back fist and some really good jabs. Both guys have slowed down a little bit, but the cleaner striking and the more precision and consistent striking from Brendan really kept his output similar, and really not even just the output. It's really about the strikes that landed, and he was just landing more effectively in this last round. 91 to 34 as far as the FPR goes, and definitely in Brendan's favor. I had a shutout 30-27. Some of the announcers, like Couture, had 29-28, but that's okay. Now, all three judges agree with me. Not that I'm the end-all, be-all, or the judges are end-all, be-all. That doesn't matter. What's right is right, and Brendan definitely did win that one. So congratulations. That was fantastic. We'll be seeing him in the finals, and we'll talk about his opponent here in a second. Before we get to that, let's talk about Larissa Pacheco taking on Elena Kolesnyk. So Kolesnyk is a bloated featherweight. She could probably even cut down to bantamweight. Right, she's carrying extra weight that she doesn't need to carry. Now, she's big. She's 5'9", and she looks like she's got some muscle on her. Okay, so maybe cutting down to 135 isn't a possibility. I think it is. I think she has 20 pounds that she could lose. Pacheco's a little bit leaner, but she's got some stuff on her, too. She could probably lose a little bit of weight. Now, and I hate doing this sometimes because I feel like people are going to get up in arms because they're females, and they think like, oh, man, you're just judging them because they're fat. But what about guys? I do the exact same thing. Okay, a fighter's a fighter. If you're holding on to excess weight, regardless of your skill level and your success, I might bring it up. Whether that be someone like Beneil Dariush, who could obviously cut weight to fight in a lower weight class, but he chooses not to, and he carries around a little pudge with him. And he does that because he doesn't want to cut weight, and he feels he fights more effectively that way. That's fine. You got a lot of bloated heavyweights. You have some light heavyweights that are bloated. You got fighters all over the place that are holding on to extra weight that they don't need to. I will bring that up as necessary when I see it's fit. The reason I'm bringing it up in this case, in Elena's case, is that, she's not a horrible fighter as far as skills go, but she's not good. And Larissa Pacheco, it's hard to tell if she's good or not. She just hits hard. And at some point in her history, it seems like she has been on testosterone, and her bone structure definitely has changed. Her voice has definitely gotten deeper. Voice is deeper. Now, this might just be a genetic, I could say the genetic lottery in the case of athletics, and her just having higher testosterone levels, but she definitely has, at some point in her life, has had higher testosterone levels than her contemporaries. And you can see it in her jawline, you can hear it in her voice, and her general, her physical layout. Right? This isn't, I'm guessing they're still doing some sort of drug testing, and they do that stuff. Whatever. I'm just bringing it up. It's extremely obvious in women. Very obvious. Okay, it's very easy to tell when a woman has been either on her testosterone was elevated at some point. It's very easy to tell when that was the case. And I don't know if that's why she hits harder, or she just has, really good bone structure for that kind of throwing, as far as throwing big right hands and that kind of stuff, and her left hook that landed and actually put Elena down. But she hits really hard. Okay, and she ended up getting the knockout here again. So she's actually the first seed, and that's because she got knockouts. And she's fighting people, the skill level just isn't there. And, how is she going to do? So her fight, so she's fighting for the title. She's going to be fighting for the $1 million, and she's going to have her rematch versus Kayla Harrison. Now, Kayla Harrison's the only woman who has beaten her in the past, a few years. I don't know if I see anything from Pacheco that says she's going to beat Harrison. Now, anything could happen, and she could obviously, crack her with a right hand on the way in, or a left hand, or maybe throw up some freak submission. I doubt that would happen. It's possible. Anything's possible. But the likelihood of that happening is very small. The likelihood of her winning a long, drawn-out decision via, lots of grappling exchanges and defending takedowns and then landing a little bit of damage, that's more likely than her getting a submission finish. I think her path to victory is just not a lucky punch, but a punch with luck on her side. And I just don't know if she's going to do it. I don't. That's the thing, is like, if your strategy is to knock the other person out, and that's your only path to victory that you have, your opponent just has to defend against one thing. And for those of you out there who are like, well, Dan Henderson used to just use the H-bomb and knock people out, and he still did it. Derek Lewis hits people. Francis Ngannou. I get it. Right? There's always exceptions. But those are exceptions that prove the rule. Because you can name specific examples of people who are successful with that technique. You know, someone who's going in there just to submit you. That requires grappling and control and putting you into position. So, you know, the freak submission artist, someone like your Paul Craig or Brian Ortega, they can land those submissions once in a while. And, you know, they throw them up and they throw their Hail Marys and they land. The problem is that is not something you want to consistently lean on. You want to round out your game knowing that you have that in the bag, so if you ever need it, you can use it. And why do I bring all that up? Because what is Pacheco going to do? What is Larissa going to do? You tell me, like, what do you think she's going to do to Harrison based off of what you've seen from her this season and what you've seen from Harrison, Kayla Harrison this season? What do you think is going to happen? My guess is Pacheco's going to look okay on the feet, might defend one or two takedowns. You know, she's going to keep it on the feet and keep Harrison away for a little bit, but eventually she's going to fall, and she's going to be on her back. Is she going to throw up Hail Marys? Is she going to be trying to get up? Is she going to be able to get up against Kayla? Probably not, dude. Probably not. So she's probably going to get either finished or grounded out for 3 rounds or 5 rounds, whatever it is. So if I had to pick someone, I'm picking Harrison. I haven't seen anything from Pacheco that looks like she's a destroyer. Okay? Yes, she has finished all the women that she faced this season. And yes, she hits hard. But she's fighting people who can't defend against that stuff and who have no other path to victory other than, like, crappy grappling, making it ugly, or trying to avoid interactions. Like, Kolesnyk's goal here is, because she beat Pacheco before, her goal was to land a left hook, a check hook, as Pacheco was coming in. But that's all she threw. And it didn't land. Repeatedly, didn't land. Anyway, let's go to the last fight that was on the playoffs here. Bubba Jenkins versus Ryoji Kudo. You know, Kudo did fine. I'm excited to see how he does next season. But Bubba Jenkins just did the damn thing, man. He got 2 high-altitude takedowns, and then Kudo managed to get back up to his feet, and then Bubba got his back and got the rear naked choke and got the finish. You know, Bubba's really good, man. Bubba Jenkins is awesome. And I'm excited to see him fight Brendan. Now, him versus Brendan Loughnane is that's a tough one to call. Because which Brendan is going to show up? Is it the one from the previous 2 fights? Because then I freaking have Jenkins all day. I'll take him all day. I'll put all my money on Jenkins to beat Brendan Loughnane if the Loughnane from those previous 2 fights shows up. If it's the one from this last one, dude, I know that I have a little bit of favoritism towards Brendan here, but it's hard to pick against him. His grappling against Wade looked good. His grappling defense, his grappling offense looked fine. Now, Jenkins might be a different animal, but he's not a completely, it's not a something unheard of or something that he hasn't seen. So if Loughnane can keep it on the feet, which I think he can, dude, this really is a 50-50 fight for me. It is. It's a 50-50 fight. I just don't see I don't see an advantage that one guy has over the other that leads me to think that, like, oh, it's going to be domination, or I'm really heavily leaning towards one. It's 50-50. So, looking at the playoff brackets here, we have the championship fights coming up. You got Stevie Ray taking on Olivier Aubin-Mercier. We've talked about all these so far. I really think OAM is going to be able to do it. Stevie Ray is great, and I think the grappling's good, but OAM has better cardio, and I mentioned that last week. I think he's going to be able to win that one. I am rooting for Delano Taylor so fucking hard. I hope he knocks out C. I hope he knocks him into next week, turns him into a fucking goat. I want to see his soul leave his body. He is so fucking boring to watch. He does not deserve to be in the championship. The way he got into the playoffs was bullshit. It's garbage. I want to see Delano Taylor fucking end him. If I don't, I'm going to be upset. It's the way it is. I'm kind of an emotional person when it comes to that stuff. But I want to see Taylor knock him the fuck out. Larissa Pacheco, Kayla Harrison. I'm taking Harrison. Like 95 out of 100 times, Harrison wins that one. 99 out of 100 times, Harrison wins that one. Are we going to see that one with Pacheco landing a good shot? Maybe. Robert Wilkinson, Omari Akhmedov. I think if it goes past that first round, Wilkinson has the advantage. I don't remember my previous pick on this one. It's kind of like that's like a 50-50 one for me. Omari Akhmedov has just looked excellent. He's been hittable, but he's also knocking people out. He's hitting hard. And Wilkinson, same thing. He's hittable, but he's also knocking people out and getting finishes. So I think Wilkinson has a pretty well-rounded game. I think Akhmedov can play differently. He can go for takedowns. He can do that stuff, but his gas tank will, we've said, let's question his gas tank. Like, is he going to be able to go the distance with any of these guys? I mean, he's looked fine. So whatever he's taking that's not popping on the tests, keep doing it because he looks excellent. I mean, my gut is telling me now that Akhmedov's going to win that, but I don't know how. I don't know if it's probably going to be via knockout. But my brain is telling me Wilkinson because I think Wilkinson has more ways to win it, especially in a longer fight. Mateus Scheffel versus Ante Delia. Delia is probably going to end up winning this one. Scheffel's looked fine, and they faced each other before. Delia got the win. He's probably going to get the win again. I think he's more well-rounded. He's got more ways to win. And then here we got Brendan Loughnane versus Bubba Jenkins. I already just broke that one down. I'm going to be it's 50-50 fight for me. Also, couple interesting things to look at. I just want to talk about the playoff structure and actually the regular season structure. So if somehow the PFL organizers could get this information, or someone could bring this up to them who watches this, tweet out at them, I don't know. Not a lot of... So, I don't have a problem with the overall way that they're doing their thing, right? And obviously, the number one seed didn't get to make it in because of visa issues and stuff. Or was he hurt? I thought it was visa issues. But there's not a lot of number ones fighting for a championship. So I just noticed that, and I thought that was interesting. But the more important thing here, looking at all these rankings, during the regular season, there needs to be a more granular point system. Not vastly different than what they have now. I think that you can make it granular with no ill effects. And I'll explain. I said this a couple weeks ago, but I really I've thought about this and I mean it. Right now, you get 3 points regardless of how you get the win and what the scores are. You get 3 points. And then you get additional points for finishing it in a round, right? So you get an additional point for finishing it in the third. You get 2 additional points for finishing in the second. You get 3 additional points for finishing it in the first round. I have no problem with that sort of incentive structure. The problem I have is that a one-way 30-25 absolute ass whooping is worth the same amount of points as a 29-28 split decision. That doesn't make sense, right? Like, that shouldn't make sense. Does that make sense to you guys? I don't think it does. I think that right there should tell you there's a problem with it. And for anybody, before we get into like what I think the points should be, for anybody who's got kickback saying like, well, if you are going to make it points based off of how you get the win via decision, well, then you're involving the judges. Sadibou sees in the playoffs because of the shitty judging. We saw it happen last year. Shitty judging is shitty judging. So a split decision for the wrong guy is rewarding him by giving him all 3 points in a fight that he shouldn't have won, but even if you think he did, he barely squeaked out a win. Whereas, like I said, there could be a one-way ass beating, just a total mauling. And that fight's, 30-25 across the board. And that guy still only gets 3 points. I think it needs there. I'm okay with the 6. I'm okay with the 5, and I'm okay with the 4. But I think the 3 needs to be broken up. In fact, I'd probably give you less points. So you could actually get points for a loss in this scenario. So, basically you get points based off of how many rounds you won. If you win all 3 rounds, you get 3 points. You only win 2, you get 2 points. You win 1 round, you get one point. I think that makes sense. And it has to be at least 2 judges give you those. Because if you go 30-27, 37-27, and then 29-28, you take the 2 judges with the 30-27. That's how you get your 3 points. I think it'll weed out some of the other bullshit, and it doesn't completely punish the person who got screwed over by the judges in a bullshit split decision. So now instead of getting a 2 points, he at least gets 1 point. But the other guy doesn't get fully rewarded. He only gets 2 points. And that's better to me. I think that's better. That's all. I just wanted to end on that one. All right, guys. That was the playoffs. Dude, I'm so excited. I love the PFL. I keep talking about it. I know I sound like a fucking nut hugger, but I really love the PFL, man. It's so much fun to watch. The commentary is great. The lighting's awesome. The fights are getting better. They have their dull moments just like anybody else. The presentation's beautiful. The freaking the structure, it's different. It's fun to watch. It makes everything engaging. I love all of it, and I can't wait to watch the finals and see who comes away with $1 million. Please, for the love of God, Delano Taylor, knock him the fuck out. Just put it out in the universe. If you made it this far in the video, please subscribe to the channel because you'll like everything else I put out. It'll let you know, hey, I put out, like later this weekend, I'm going to put out 2 videos on the UFC. But I put out at least 2 videos every single week, sometimes 2, 3, 4. I cover in all the different MMA organizations, and I talk about all the fights. If this is the only one you're watching this weekend, fantastic. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your time. If you're looking for the UFC, it's in the next video. And thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I love y'all.